Brenden Winder, welcome to the Marketing for Business podcast.
Thanks, mate. Good to be here.
Mate, we're going to have a great chat today. By the way, though, you got a bit of a shiner. What happened? Like, it's just, you can just see it.
Yeah. Early January, I was playing cricket in Auckland and had a moment where I bowled, batsman smashed it, and I thought rather than using my hands to stop it, I'd stick my face in the way.
I remember from playing you in cricket, you were a fierce competitor. You certainly didn't take a backward step. You're a good player, but what I love about cricket is you meet good guys on the field that are good guys off the field as well. So I think that's a show of someone. I want to have a real good chat today. Look, I put it out on LinkedIn. Hey, I want to talk to some people that I know from LinkedIn. You came up and said, hey, man, I'll have a chat to you. So I really appreciate you coming along. You got a varied background, right? You've been in the military.
Yep.
What'd you do in the military?
I was in the Navy for 10 years as a young guy.
Yep.
17 through to 27. Drove ships around Southeast Asia, Pacific and Australia, and had plenty of fun.
What was your most memorable moment by being in the Navy?
Probably going to Antarctica.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Spent a couple of weeks down there on a US Coast Guard non-nuclear icebreaker.
Wow. Fascinating. What did you like? What did you learn most about yourself when you were in the Navy? Like, obviously, they would have put you in some situations that would have been pretty testing, right?
Yeah, I think what I learned was when you think you've done, you've got more to give.
Yeah.
When you first get those thoughts around, I'm tired or I don't know what to do here, you're probably hitting less than half of what you're really capable of.
Yeah.
And, with some prompting, you learn to go well beyond that, and then you take those lessons into your life.
Yeah, because the people that are putting you in those situations have been through it, right? So they know there's probably more there.
Yeah.
Let's see what these guys have got. Let's see what this guy's got.
Yeah, they know, and sometimes you got to learn it yourself. And then once you've done it a few times, you figure out how to push through.
Yeah. Any big takeaways from what you do now that you really think, oh man, that what I learned there really held me in good stead for the rest of my life?
Made lots of stuff.
Yeah,
lots of stuff about leadership and personal resilience, and just biting down on the mouth guard and buddy getting on with it.
Yep.
But people skills as well. Like lots of people look at the military and think it's all sort of yelling and screaming, and it's actually the opposite of that.
Yep.
It's really sophisticated leadership in difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
And
because you got to be cool under pressure, right?
Yeah. In my old job and in my current job.
Yeah, and we're going to get to what you're doing now, but I really think one of the things I've noticed from you is your leadership skills, right? Did you learn that early on, or was that something that you just you developed as you were in the Navy, or was it coming out of the Navy where your leadership skills started to take control?
I think the first seeds were planted, as I joined the Navy, and then it became apparent, it's a force multiplier, right? It makes everything better and faster, and it makes life easier when you've got good leadership.
Yeah.
But it didn't stop there. Leadership, I think, is a continuous learning, and still to this day, learning leadership lessons every day.
Yeah, and that is when you're a learner about this sort of stuff, you realize you've got to continuously upgrade what's going on in here. The more people you start to lead, and even more leading different types of people. What made you join the Navy though? Was it like you saw a recruitment, or did you have other people that you knew that were in the Navy? Why choose the Navy? Did you like sailing? Like the water?
No, not especially. I was keen to do something different when I left school. I'd been studying like everyone else. I was at school, and I was fortunate to get through to the 7th form.
Oh, wow.
In old terms.
Yeah.
But by the time I got to there, I was keen to go and do something other than studying.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the military, and honestly, the first option that popped up was the Navy.
Yeah.
So I went and had a chat with them, and I went from there.
Yeah, and then you end up in Antarctic and all these other cool places, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. And like obviously getting to meet people from all around the world, that would have been pretty exciting as well.
Yeah, fascinating. And as a young guy being exposed to all those cultures, Māori and Pacifica and other cultures within the military, but also those places that you visit as well. Fascinating learning.
Yeah. Antarctica, like, is it all that it's cracked up to be? I've heard it's a great place to go, but difficult to get to as far as can be quite, and from a sailing perspective, can be quite choppy, pretty scary.
Yeah, very. It's a long way down, and you go through some pretty deep water to get there. So, I'd recommend being on a big ship. But when you get there, it's fascinating.
Yeah, I know a few people that have gone and they really say it's a pretty amazing place. So maybe I'll put that on my to-do list. Okay, well, then you get into what you're doing now is pretty interesting. We're going to talk about some of the AI stuff that you're doing and working at the council. But you were down in Queenstown, if correct me if I'm wrong, but when the earthquake hit here, you got seconded and put up here. So you would have lived through this pretty hard. Like I know, like we were just talking about the city and how the city's really coming back, and it's such a great to see. But man, what a time that was, eh?
Yeah, and I was in Queensland at the time. I actually came up for the September quake as well, and helped out regionally doing some
Yep.
work there. And that must have gone okay because they invited me back in February. And I remember arriving in the city on the first day, coming into town from the airport. And if you remember, out west there wasn't as much damage.
No.
And you drive into town, and it, got into the CBD, and I thought,
Yeah.
this is serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
I ended up going to bed that night in a motel up on Papanui Road. A friend of mine's parents owned it, and
Yep.
they gave me a spot there. And I was lying in bed, and there was aftershocks, and it was
Oh, yeah.
pretty scary. And I was thinking, there's people under buildings, and here I
Yeah.
am in this bed. And that kind of lit a fire in me. I thought, I'm going to do everything I can to help them.
Yeah. Wow.
And that lasted for, through till now, actually.
Those times, I remember I remember pretty badly taking a photo of being outside my dad's house, and there was this little crack, and it was like of liquefaction, right? And I was like, oh, this is not that bad. And then I went around to my mum's place, and it was devastating. She was red zoned, and I was like, whoa. And then like we couldn't get into our businesses, we couldn't do anything, and it was a hectic time, right? So your role in that aspect though, like what were you doing as far as
So when I initially got seconded up here from Queenstown to Christchurch, the very first thing that I did was I was given the task of going in there and helping out the intelligence collection team. So
Yep.
there's a group of people who need to find out what's going on,
Yep.
and everything's going on at
Yeah,
that
yeah.
stage, right? The city was, in poor shape. And I met the team, and many of them were very new to it, and some of them were quite stressed. And the first thing I had to do was just get the team working together and calm.
Yeah.
So the intelligence skills,
Yeah.
and I'm not a practitioner in intelligence at all, but the first skill I had to deploy was just leading the team,
Yeah, yeah.
calming them down, getting
Cool.
everyone working together and doing that.
This is gold because look, the audience here is business owners, right? And I want to take some of these learnings that you have, and I'll be selfishly going to ask you some questions because I want to know how can you take the learnings that you have from that experience into business, So because I think a lot of businesses at this time, and there's a lot of pressure going on, there's a lot of pressure on wage costs, there's a lot of pressure on interest rates still, there's a lot of pressure on food costs and all this sort of stuff. There's a lot of pressure on people. And sometimes when the pressure gets too much, people start to get a little bit, a bit testy and stuff like that. And I think not to the point where, we're in, where we were back in 2011 and that, but I think there's some skills that you have, those learnings that can translate to that. So let's look at some of that sort of stuff. Let's look at what are some of the things, when a team starts to get stressed, what are some of the things they should be start to look at? Or what should the leader be looking at?
Sure. And there's a few things. The first thing I'd say there is just check in on yourself.
Yep.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's one thing to be a leader when life's going well for you, but if you've got your own challenges at home, you need to address those
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So we see in the environment now, and we often say to people, if it's not okay at home, don't come in
Yep.
because you're not going to be contributing how we
Yeah,
need you
yeah.
to. So the first thing we do is check in on ourselves. Is my wife okay? Are the kids okay? Is the family in
Totally.
Christchurch here
Yeah.
okay? And
Yeah.
then once you've got that, once you're comfortable that's
Yeah.
happened, then it's about checking in with the team.
Yeah.
And the task largely is secondary to
Yeah.
the people that are doing it.
Yep.
If the people can't do the task is going to fall
Yeah.
over anyway. So look after the people.
So making sure all those people, you checking that you're okay, but making sure they've checked in. Yeah,
Yep.
they're okay as well.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if they're not, hey, go home.
And sometimes you're better off playing a man short, right?
Yep.
If you've got 3 or 4 guys or girls that are there that are doing 100%, that's better than half a dozen people who are operating
Yep.
at 50%.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
So, first of all, like I did those years ago, check in on the team, make sure they're okay. And if they're not, send them away until they are.
Yeah.
And then once you've got the people squared away, then start worrying about the process.
Yeah. And those obviously, when you're dealing with people in those sort of situations, can you kind of tell if someone's having you on, like if someone's not giving you the full story? You picked up anything there that people could learn from?
Yeah, so if you know the people well, there'll be markers there and indicators,
Mm.
they're operating outside of their normal sort of character set. If you don't know people, and quite often in my line of work, I'll be meeting people for the first time and going
Yeah.
into difficult circumstances, you have to be really quite tuned into it.
Yeah.
So you're looking for incongruence when
Yeah.
they're saying one thing but doing another.
Doing another.
Their face is saying one thing or their body language is
Yeah.
saying another thing. You're just saying, actually, stuff isn't lining up.
Yeah, yeah,
And if
yeah.
it's not lining up, there's a reason.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes, not always,
Yeah.
but sometimes to do with stress.
Yeah. Yeah, because stress can do a lot of things to the body, right?
Yeah.
And but parts of the body still give it away.
Yep.
What goes first, do you reckon?
Different for different people,
Yeah.
I think. Sometimes it's their voice, sometimes it'll be their shoulders
Yeah.
or their mannerisms or
Yeah. Skin.
their tone.
Yeah.
Flushed also,
Yeah.
eyes and not always the same for every person, but there's generally giveaways. And if you're tuned into them, you'll pick them up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. So then I think you made a good point around then, okay, it's the people, then the process, right? So how do you like, even if you're coming in new, how do you know what the process is going to be or should be?
So generally we go into these circumstances with a good understanding of what the basic principles and basic process is.
Nice.
And when you get into those big situations, that, you've always got to kind of remember is simplicity scales and complexity fails.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the very first things we did was just put together a very simple process.
Nice.
And I won't go through the whole intelligence cycle before you, but largely it's linear. So what I ended up doing with the team was lining them up literally in a line, saying your job here, position A, is to do this. When you're finished, it goes to position B, and position C. So it was graphically demonstrated what we're trying to achieve. So, so everyone could be more comfortable with what they're doing.
Yeah.
They knew that they had to take their piece, do their work, and pass it on to the person next to them.
Brilliant.
And that simplicity just makes it more effective and then more efficient, and they get comfortable with it. Then you can see, the life coming back to their face, and everyone's heart rate comes down, and decisions are made, and away you go.
Okay, good. I'm reading a fascinating book at the moment, and I won't be able to say the guy's name because I'll just ruin it. But it's called Checklists, and he basically talks about how in operating rooms there never used to be a lot of checklists in surgeries, and since 2004, the amount of surgeries have gone through the roof, and so they started looking at the construction industry and how the construction industry was very well developed around the moving parts of a checklist and what a checklist did. And they got to the point where in the surgeries, what they did is they created a checklist where they would put a piece of card over the scalpel and it was ready to operate. And the person couldn't lift that off until everyone else had done their job in the checklist. And I just thought, wow, that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Everyone else has to do their job, A, B, C, D, then you're allowed to do that.
Checklist Manifesto is what you're reading. And a guy's called At Will Get One Day.
Yeah, man, what a book.
And they also talked about how...
I'm glad you got his name right.
Yeah, I'm not sure I did.
I feel bad for that.
And how you can use Formula One teams as an exemplar too.
Yeah.
So high pressure, lots of sequentially dependent moving parts, and they all have to happen in a manner. And I work in I don't want to compare myself to surgery or Formula One, but we work in an environment where it's these similar principles.
Yeah.
So we've brought in the last couple of years a whole heap more checklists.
Yeah.
Not because we don't want people to think.
No.
But what we want them to do is allow their cognitive load to be focused on the problem,
not the
administration.
Not the administration of it. I just thought, man, that's genius. Because someone recommended I read it, and I was like, because it's the person who recommended it, I was like, right, I'm going to read this. I've got an audio book, and I'm going to get the physical book, and you can just see how some people are more successful by having a checklist. And it sounds really simple, but it kind of is if you do the things.
Yeah, so pilots use it before they take off and land a plane, and they have to get that right.
Yeah.
So they go through a checklist which improves their percentage chance of getting it right.
It's fascinating when you start to look at he was talking about, I haven't got up to the F1 yet, but he was talking about, the buildings and how they can't fail. They can't fail. Like if they fail, we're in a lot of trouble, right? So every checklist, every detail.
Yep.
Which was cool. Okay, so that process you have, I like what you said there, you're getting the process right so people can then use their capability. The admin side of it's kind of taken care of. Did you start to drill that in the earthquakes? Is that what you were having to do there, or was this?
No, I had a different role. So initially I was in there doing the intelligence piece, and then it became apparent there was a whole lot of other projects that needed to happen. So they needed to grab someone from within the structure who understood the wider emergency management setup, but could also apply themselves into some unique kind of circumstances, like establishing the cordon, allowing businesses back into those restricted areas. And that was the area that I was put into. It was called the Special Projects Team, and I got given a whole lot of those projects to deliver.
Wow. And like to be fair, there was a lot of emotion around that time, mate. How did you handle that yourself? Because business owners wanted their stuff back. They didn't want anyone else touching it. And I remember talking to some lawyers and all this sort of stuff, and some of the stuff they were doing to get in, and it was pretty hairy time, right?
Yeah, it was very emotive, and there was a number of ways we dealt with it. One, because we knew we were doing the right thing,
Mm,
so that when you've got a really clear purpose, it's
yeah,
helpful. Um, but occasionally there'd be aftershocks, and what we found was, as we had all these people very excited about getting their gear back and upset that we weren't allowing it to happen as fast as they wanted or under their conditions, and then there'd be an aftershock,
and they get it.
and then they'd get
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it.
Oh, I remember being in New World, and there was a massive aftershock, and like there was in the wine aisle because that's what you're doing during lockdown. You
Yeah,
were drinking a bunch of
yeah.
wine, and man, I was like, I said to my mum at the time, I just remember like I think the aftershocks were the worst. They were the worst part of it, and like you just never knew if it was going to take off or whatever. Like that was definitely a time where your nerves were pretty, yeah.
Yeah.
Must have been pretty stressful though for you having to deal with that as well. Like it would have been easy for me. I can walk away from it. I'm not having to do any of that sort of stuff. But for you, what were you doing to keep your self in check? Were the teams there working together? What were they doing?
Yeah, fascinating that you asked that, Scotty, because at the time I don't have any techniques at all.
Yeah,
And what I've learned since is if I want to be successful in this game, you need to be.
yeah,
So since then, I've done a whole lot of things, and I continue to do a whole lot of things to help me
yeah,
regulate emotion and manage stress and
yeah,
build resilience. But at the time, what was I doing? Working really, really long hours,
yeah,
not sleeping,
yeah,
not exercising, eating crap food, and
yeah.
just kind of dealing with it as I went along.
So all the things you probably shouldn't do.
Terrible things. Yeah, 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 yeah. In
But
hindsight.
but at the same time, driven by a bigger purpose than yourself, which
Yeah,
is what I could hear from what you were saying, right?
yeah,
You knew your why, everyone knew why they were doing it, and just get on with it. And look, that can work for a period of time until everything falls apart, right?
yep.
Like, and you probably, seen people do that, right? So as a let's take it a little bit back as to a business owner then, what should they be looking at from a process perspective? Like what should they be starting to look at with their team, and how, from your experience now, how do you really break down and build those checklists inside a business?
So the checklist example is fascinating because there's a number of different types, and you'll see in that book as you come
Mm,
to it. There's so choosing the right checklist for the right people and at the right time, and making them simple
yeah,
and easy to use. Because as soon as it's hard, people will stop doing it. That's
yeah,
just human nature.
yeah.
That's not anyone in particular. That's just human nature.
We look for shortcuts, eh?
Yeah, naturally, yeah, we
Yeah,
can't help ourselves. Our brain's wired to do that.
yeah,
Um, so, so the building of the checklist is quite a scientific activity, and done well, it can be a real complement to what you're doing.
mm,
And the test for me that I like to see with the teams that I'm leading is I'll help the team understand what checklist we need. First of all, why we're doing it,
yeah,
but then how we're going to do it, and then the team needs to own that,
yeah,
and then they build it. And we go through the several iterations till we get it to a point where we know that it's working. Then we test it live.
yep.
So if
Give me
it's
an
like
example what you've done.
so we have to establish our emergency operations center.
Yep,
There's a whole lot of things we need to do in
yep,
terms of information management and contacting people and setting up
yep,
systems and bits and pieces. So quite a long and not complicated, but quite a long list of things that need to be done. And if you sat there for hours, you could remember it.
yeah,
But don't want to do it in hours. We want to do it in
yeah,
minutes. So we build that checklist, and then we test it, and then we iterate it. But the test for me, I think, is when I see that checklist getting used when the team thinks I'm not around.
yep,
So I come into the EOC late, or I disappear for a couple of hours, and it continues to get used.
yep.
That's when I know that the checklist has landed culturally.
Perfect.
And then once it's there, I'm like,
Yep,
okay,
yep,
I've got it now, and they'll own that, and
yeah,
they'll iterate it themselves.
yeah. And that's the cool part about it. Like you get people that take ownership of it, and then hey, well, actually, there's a better way we could do that. Why don't we do this as well? One thing I got from their book, and I thought it was fascinating when they were saving lives of people that had been in cold water or in an avalanche and stuff like that. And then when they created the checklist, they went through everything. And when it really resonated with me was um, the phone call to the person. So they calling the emergency support. That person has the checklist, and that person started the whole process of who to call, when they needed to be there, all that sort of stuff. And they went from not being able to save lives to saving lives for people who have been basically dead underwater for an hour, if not more. They brought a girl back, and I thought that was fascinating. That simple, well, it wasn't simple. It was that one thought. Okay, well, get that information to the person who gets the first phone call. And I thought, man, when you're creating a checklist, go all the way back to where where it starts.
And who's going to be most effective? Because
Mm.
quite often in our circumstances, there's heightened emotion
Yeah,
and there's stress, and sometimes a person who's a bit dispassionate or dislocated geographically from the scene
yeah,
isn't as intensely affected.
no,
So sometimes, having the phone call or the email or whatever it needs to be, where you can just work through it methodically,
yeah,
is more effective than trying to be excited and tense and stressed
yeah, yeah,
and trying to do the checklist as well.
yeah. And that's obviously when they read the book. When they had that the first responder, a person that takes the calls, they'll be trained to that. Like they're trained to keep calm and then go through the process. And I just thought that was fascinating, right? To be able to to save people like that, by having a checklist, because they were not saving people, right?
Yeah.
Very, very cool. I like how you see getting a team to own it. I think that's one of the things every business owner should be doing. I like our theme for this year is to own it, elevate it, celebrate it. Getting the team to own what they're doing, getting them to elevate what they're doing, as far as, hey, you own it, but where could you elevate that role to? So that's one of the reasons I'm reading the book as well, is just to understand more about checklists and how they actually play out in the real world. Fascinating, fascinating. When you look at, I guess, situations we get ourselves in, but at the same time, there's experience that can teach us, right? And I guess that earthquake, and the two earthquakes. What would you say, if you're looking back now? What's the gift that they'd given you? Any gifts there?
Yeah, it gifted me a family.
Yep.
Yes, I met my wife here in Christchurch. We met during the response in September 2010, and then we reconnected 2011.
Nice.
So we've got two kids now. So
Very good.
Yeah, very good. It also gifted me some really neat people in my life.
Yep.
Some, and I had a great friend set, and I still very much do, in
Yeah.
other parts of the country I've
Yeah,
lived
yeah.
in. But now I've got some really close mates in Christchurch who are smart, hardworking, resilient people that
Yeah, nice.
and you mentioned cricket, so I came to Christchurch and wanted to have some stuff going on outside of just work, and ended up playing cricket there and met some good buggers.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're still very much in my
Pity
life.
you played for Sydenham. But
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Not a pity at all.
yeah. That's
So,
cool, right? Like
yeah.
that is very cool. I like, I think, being here while that was all going on. I think I look at Christchurch people, look them in the eye, they're definitely resilient. The ones that have gone through it, there's heaps of people that did leave and come back, but the people that stayed here were pretty resilient, right?
Well, so yes, Scotty, I think we are, but I think what's happened is the bell curve of resilience in a typical city is just a bell curve,
Yep.
standard deviation stuff. But I think in Christchurch it's been stretched.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
good
there's
point.
people at the right hand side who are super resilient.
Yeah.
Something will happen tomorrow, the bomb drop on them and they'll shake it off.
Yeah.
But there's people at the other end that are
Yeah,
less
okay.
resilient.
Yeah.
So I think, in the business that I'm in, we're dealing with the entire community.
Yeah.
And we see some people who are super resilient, and we see some people who are still traumatized.
Yeah. Yeah. And rightly so for some of them, because they've
For
saw
sure.
a lot and went through a lot. Brings me to one of the things we were talking about, though. One of the messages that you want to get across to people is be prepared.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What should people be doing? And I think every business owner, you could lead the charge here. One, be prepared yourself and help your teams get prepared. So what do we need to do? Because you've got some information around this that can actually help people be more prepared.
Yeah, so there's a long going campaign in New Zealand, nationally, regionally, locally, about get ready, get through. So have the stuff in your house and at your work that you need to grab quickly in an emergency. And it's pretty simple stuff. It's a bit of tin food, a can opener, a phone charger, warm clothes, medicine, something to feed your dog, sanitary items, a couple of key phone numbers, and the list goes on a little bit further than that. But broadly speaking, it's common sense stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't know when the next event's going to be, right?
No.
So you could be at work, in your car, if you're lucky enough to have a beach house or something, or you go camping, or at home. So, people that are really well prepared will have a kit in each of those places. And I know that there's an expense that comes with that. But many of these people have built them up over time.
Yeah.
So in our house, my wife and I, we've got a kit at home. I've got a smaller kit at work. In the back of my car, I've got a few bits and pieces. So 99% of the time, and you've got to be realistic, it's not everywhere.
Yeah.
But 99% of the time, I've got access to a bit of food, a bit of warm clothes, ability to charge my phone, so I can hang out somewhere for a day or two. I can make a couple of phone calls and look after myself and my family.
Yeah.
And that provides massive peace of mind, but also reduces the burden on the city or the government. If there's a big event there and everyone turns up at the civil defence centres with a couple of days worth of food, that means you're eating the food you like, rather than the food we provide you. Do yourself a favour, because we're not turning up with gourmet meals.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, well then why do you think people are complacent around this? Do you reckon is the message just not getting through? Obviously, it's not getting through if you think people aren't doing it. Is it just going on deaf ears? Does it need a refresh? Why would you be complacent on this?
Mate, honestly, I don't know. I think it's probably a combination of all those things you mentioned there. One, it's not expensive, but it's also not free.
Yeah.
So you've actually got to apply some effort to it and apply a little bit of money to it as well. And that's not, and I know that not everyone can do that, but most can. And the people that can't often have support systems that can help them out with it. So there's that. I think also the message over time has become so worn now that people forget about it.
Yeah.
They see it and walk past it because they've seen it so often.
Yeah.
But there's a bit of she'll be right, Kiwi attitude, won't happen to me. But the world we're living in now with climate change and geopolitically and all those other things there, the it won't happen to me sort of assumption is tough to justify now.
Yeah.
So
totally.
So all of those things count against it. Even after the earthquakes in Christchurch, there wasn't a whole lot of people who were prepared for the next one.
No.
And that's a real shame.
Yeah. I do remember having a kit and was fully laden after the first one and I think we had it in the second one. But I'll be honest, we don't have anything at the moment, and I'll probably be a good representation of the people.
Yep.
The message I didn't really resonate with, get ready, get through. I think it needs a refresh. Probably. It needs a rebrand, and it probably needs another refocus in the marketplace, because I think it should be easy enough to do, but no one's doing it.
Yeah.
And I guess from what you were saying though is a strong point. Hey, if people do need to turn up to an emergency place, like you might as well have stuff that you want in that kit rather than having nothing. So where do people go if they wanted to get information about this though?
There's information galore. So the National Emergency Management Agency has a Get Ready, Get Through website. It's replicated here in Canterbury. It's replicated at Christchurch City Council. You can go there. You can type in Get Ready, Get Through. You can just Google getaway kits and straight into there, and you'll get 1,000 hits, and 99% of them will be really useful.
Yeah.
So there's no shortage of places to go and do it. It used to be in the back of your phone book.
Yeah.
There was lots of different avenues, and even if you don't have any access to that, just think about the stuff that you really need in the next 72 or 96 hours, 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
What would you have with you? Warm clothes, food, phone charger, a few bits and pieces, can opener, put it all together, and you're away.
Get in a backpack and you're away laughing.
Yep, hang it up by the front door or something so you can grab it if you need it.
Yeah. Maybe we should have a day or something where people get their stuff together.
We have a shakeout day in October where we do the earthquake, drop, cover, hold.
Yeah.
And that happens, at 9 o'clock in the morning or during the week. And typically people are at work. But you could be anywhere.
What if you made kids accountable for this?
That often works, right?
Yeah.
And we have lots of school campaigns, and kids are really good advocates for this because they can see the benefit in it. But it's also it's hard to go back and measure whether or not the kids have done it. So, we work with schools a lot.
But if we could, I reckon if you could, one of the things I reckon if you funded the backpack and gave every kid the backpack and a checklist and took them home, that would work. And brainstorm around a better campaign around the backpack. I think you could get a supplier, you could get a sponsor for the backpacks, and you could create something pretty cool around that. That could be a way to do it. Then people just got to fill up a backpack. You know?
Yeah.
Because because the backpack's probably the vessel that people could then see, and the parents would go, right, we're going to fill that, and you got no excuses.
Yeah, I like there's lots of different ways to skin this cat, and we've tried many of them. We do have quite a bit of collateral. We go to heaps of events. The team and I, to be fair, mostly the team, are out nights and weekends all throughout the year, and we give away a lot of collateral. We have lots of marketing campaigns, but still the impact, I think, can be improved. So look, if anyone has any great ideas or wants to support us, we're all ears.
I'm going to work on the backpack. I think that's got legs. Just need to find a sponsor.
Yeah,
someone will sponsor it, and like you can get that sort of stuff cheaper these days than ever before.
Yep.
All right. Hey, well, let's shift gears a wee bit because you're doing some pretty cool stuff with AI as well. And I know I've had a look on your LinkedIn, and you've got this emergency management leadership simulator. And firstly, why did you create this? And look, if you're on YouTube, you're going to be able to see some of this sort of stuff. If you're not on YouTube, don't worry. We'll put some links into it too, so you can see what's happening here. So, firstly, why did you create this? What's the thought?
Because I think there's technology out there that can help me do what will help me and my team, or in my industry, do what we need to do.
Yep.
And my very simple explanation around AI is it does scale well.
Yep.
It does speed well.
Yep.
And it's accurate enough.
Yeah.
And largely in emergencies, that's okay.
Yeah.
So one of the real challenges in emergency management, there's a team of 8 in Christchurch City. We're pretty well resourced actually, and the team are working hard. But if there's a big emergency, that team needs to grow from 8 to 800.
Yeah.
So that speed to scale is the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
So AI can help us do that.
Yeah, truly.
So what I've done with the ChatGPT thing there is get a corpus of information, add it to and create a private GPT, and that allows us to very quickly check and determine whether or not we're taking the right course of action.
Yep.
So again, that'll be it does fast well, it does scale well, and we're not putting anything private in there, so no one needs to worry about any private information being in there, and that can sit alongside our decision makers, and we can use this AI tool just as a check against what we're doing currently and what our future plans might be. And if it gives us 2 or 3 prompts around stuff that we might have missed, it adds value.
Yeah.
And it's almost free.
The crazy part about AI, and this is what I keep saying to people, hey, look, whether you like AI or not, like just understand that it has been trained and read more than 200 million books, right? Like it's actually, and it has that information. So why not leverage it and use it, right? So this scenario here, this emergency simulator, and I think every business owner should have a look at this. If I put in here a situation, so I've got my name and then I put in flooding and I push here, this now is working on a simulator of what I could do, what I need to do. What is the...
Yeah, so what I've done in the background is I've got what's called a corpus of information. So I've got legislation, directors' guidelines, best practice guides, after action reports, all the sort of stuff that we would use. And there's dozens of documents and there are hundreds of pages. And there's all sorts of complex diagrams. So the AI can sort of instantly synthesize that.
Yep. So it's been trained on that data?
Specifically on that data, ring-fenced.
Nice.
And then what we do with we put in our own specific information. So you've put your name and one particular hazard type.
Yeah.
If you'd added in more detail about where you were and what the weather forecast was, and more people.
So the more context you give it, the better detail. Perfect.
And then it learns.
Yeah.
And then you can have, at the end of this incident here, you have this this flood incident. You could write an after action report, actually use AI to write it.
Yep.
Add it in there, and it will learn from what how it responded, but it'll also learn from your report as well. So it incrementally improves each time you use it.
Perfect.
So machine learning
at its best, and looking to so some of the stuff here, the Waimakere River's risk of breaching stop banks north of the city, like there's some real scenarios there, right? Like that's, if you live in Christchurch, you know that's a potential what can be happening. Road closures, power outages to 8,000 homes. This is cool, right? So then you've got your first decision point, and what needs to be done there. It also has risks and opportunities, advice for best practice. So that then is obviously a custom GPT that you've it's digressed all this information. It knows best practices from what's been done in the past, and what it's been trained on.
Yep.
How good.
And I am not a tech guy, probably took me 15 minutes to pull it together.
Yeah.
And now we've got a really powerful tool that can sit alongside us and help us with decision making. It won't take the role of a decision maker,
No.
but checks and balances
Yeah,
to
yeah.
sit alongside us is very useful.
How good, how good. So let's talk about AI then, because obviously it's impressive what you've done there. What have you learned about AI? What do you like about it? What do you dislike about it?
I like the fact that it moves fast, and I like the fact that it does scale really quickly. I'm also okay with the fact that it's not 100% accurate. I think if you go into it eyes open and accept that what it generates still needs a human to review
Totally.
before you act on it, that's quite a good filter.
Yeah.
What do I not like about it? It supports some of those tech billionaires who are doing
Yeah.
silly stuff around the world.
Yeah.
That annoys me.
Yeah.
It also can be a little generic occasionally. It oversynthesizes information,
Yep.
and it can't. Sometimes it's not quite as specific as it could be. But I also wonder whether or not that's my prompts as well.
Yep.
So I might have a role to play in that.
Yep.
I'm interested in innovation and good decision making and moving this whole sector forward. And technology is one of the things we use. It's not
Yeah.
the only thing by
No.
any means. So, but if I can harness it,
Yeah.
I'm going to.
Well, totally, because like it's got, like I look at it from a sales perspective. I was in the States recently and talking to a guy, and he's been building his own custom GPTs for his sales environment. So he has a number of trucks driving around America filming restaurants. It's called America's Best Restaurants. They'll get about 120 to 130 leads a day coming into their sales team. So they've been training a GPT to trained on these three types of people who are sales trainers. It's read everything and seen everything and been uploaded, all that information. And now the sales calls get fed into that, and basically they're able to see what the good sale, why certain salespeople are selling more than other salespeople, and then train those other salespeople on what the good salespeople are doing. One small thing they found out is the good sales guy people were mentioning the price in the first 5 minutes. The guys that weren't making the sales waited till 28 minutes to mention the price. And it was just a small thing like that they learned from the AI by feeding the calls, then having these people, these gurus that are inside the GPT go, hey, let's analyze this. And crazy how you can use technology like that, right? There were so many other companies starting to use that custom, and I think that's the opportunity. Yeah, and I totally believe you've got to proof check it. You actually got to ask it itself where to cite the resources of where it's getting this information from, right? Because I think that's important. I think the context of what you give it is so important, and spending the time on that context is probably one of the most important parts of getting good information out. Also, I've learned recently to interview it, make it, really interview and get it to ask you one question at a time. And one of the things I learned from this guy, Jeff Woods, he said, look, it's your thought leadership with the AI's thought partnership. And I thought that was really, really brilliant, because I kind of believe in, artificial intelligence plus the human intelligence creates a super intelligence. And I think the people still have a lot to play in that. And I think that's where, if you interview it and get it to ask you one question at a time, it's getting your thought leadership back into it. And then you get it to play a role, and then and out of that comes a task. And that was a really good way of working with AI. And I think that's what you've probably done here, right? You're working with it to get a better result. Because a lot of it, if people are just using it to write an email, well, that's kind of a waste of time, right? There's so much more potential you can be doing it for, right?
Yeah. So it's a productivity tool at a superficial level.
Yeah.
But a thought partnership tool. I haven't heard that term before, but that makes good sense. And I'm not even sure that that is where it's going to end up. I think there's iterations well beyond that.
Totally.
But if it can save me time and money and effort and still end up with a product I'm happy to put my name against,
Yeah.
happy days.
And I think it's important what you just said. When something happens, when stuff goes bad, tsunami, earthquake, flooding, whatever, you guys are getting the calls, right? You're going to be there. So if you have the ability to scale, like, why wouldn't you use it, right? Like, if you can go from a team of 8 to 800 and have processes all ready to go, it's pretty powerful, right?
Well, there's circumstances that we anticipate where there could be, tens of thousands of people in the city with really immediate welfare needs, food, clothing, information, etc. 10 years ago, we would have done that by manually collecting the information, putting it into a
Yeah.
Excel spreadsheet,
Yeah.
and then going through on a pivot table.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
imagine the
Yeah.
effort that now
Yeah.
it's a photograph, so
Yeah.
it's an image.
Yeah.
It's collected into a file, it's dumped into a large language model,
Yeah.
and told to analyze it, and that
Yeah.
can happen in seconds.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like I've showed some people just at a seminar, just take a photo of a fridge and ask it what's inside the fridge, and it tells you what's inside the fridge just in seconds. And then, okay, tell me where I can buy that. And the next minute, it's linking to where you can buy stuff. It's incredible what it can do. And I think how you're using it there is very valuable in those sort of situations, especially of the way you used to do it, right?
Far faster.
Yeah. Interesting though. So you actually, I was reading that you got sent to Nepal after they had their earthquake and stuff. So
Yeah.
were you starting to, I guess, use some of the things that you'd learnt into to help some of these other areas of the world?
Yeah, so big earthquake in Nepal, 2015, 1 million houses damaged. So it's
Crazy.
unbelievable
Another
scale.
scale, right?
Yeah, and throughout the earthquakes here in Christchurch, I'd worked alongside and become friends with some very successful, smart engineers. And they left Christchurch after a couple of years. Some of them did, some of them stayed, but some of them left and went all around the world. And an engineer who was working in that part of the world said to me, Brenden, you and many of your contemporaries could actually come back and help teach the government of Nepal
wow.
how to do these demolitions. So we spent 2 weeks there, trained 100 odd people on how to do. It's a very specific sort of demolition for buildings between 3 and 6 stories, because lower than that, it's going to have to be done by the community. Higher than that, it's done with big machinery. Between 3 and 6 stories, there was a bit of a sweet spot in there where it was kind of a mixture of both.
Oh wow!
And we spent 2 weeks in Kathmandu teaching 100 odd government officials how to do that. And,
wow!
And that program progressed for the last couple of years.
It's okay. It's like so. How did you learn that sort of stuff though? Like, would you learn it here, or do you?
So I'm not a demolition expert, but I've worked alongside a number of demolition experts for a number of years. So I've picked up a lot of the principles. But it wasn't just about demolition. It was about structural engineering and geotechnical engineering and project management and leadership. And the whole package that we gave to the government in Nepal was all of that combined. And then written in the Nepalese context, because the building code is different, and the way they do, the labour force, etc., and the way they contract. So we took a team over there that had specialists from each of those disciplines, and delivered it. We delivered the same 1 week course 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, good. Well, what do you love about your job and what you do?
I like helping people.
Yeah. Comes across, right? And where was that gift given to you? Was it from parents, grandmother, or just situations in your life?
Yeah, look, so my mum's a midwife, and she's been in the health industry for my whole life. So a few years, Scotty.
Yeah, important. That's a very important job, by the way.
Yeah. It's the most important, right?
Right.
And Dad was an engineer, so and he used to work on big projects. So kind of on one side was Mum's desire to help people, and on the other side was Dad's sort of project management and scale thing.
Yeah,
and maybe that sort of joined together.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like helping people is a gift in itself, right? If you've got the patience and if you've got the desire to help people, like you always remember a quote from a guy called Jim Rohn. He basically said, if you want anything in life, you just help other people get what they want. And I really believe that. Like I heard it young enough and old enough to know that it was true. So that's pretty much I've done is go and help people in advance before they give you any money. You don't have to worry about the money when you start helping people. So that's cool that you picked that up, and you obviously, having your mum midwife, she would have taught you a lot indirectly over the years too, right?
Yeah.
So where to from here for the council and what you're doing? Like, where's the, obviously, you're the kind of person, or you work in a team where no one really wants to have to use you, right? Because if you're getting the call, we're in trouble, right? Where's the future lie?
Yeah, so there's a challenge inherent in emergency management, as we're like sort of insurance. No one wants to pay it, but then when it goes bang, it becomes very important.
Yeah, totally.
So where to next? One of the things we've done at the city is have a good look at the sticky stuff, the stuff that's going to kill you.
Yep.
STICKY.
Yep.
And the stuff that's going to kill us in Christchurch is not earthquakes.
Yep.
It's tsunamis.
Oh wow.
So our focus very much now is on how do we prepare the city for. We can't make it tsunami proof; that's
No.
impossible. But how do we prepare the city to be better placed if there's a large tsunami in terms of hardening infrastructure and
Yep.
educating the population and planning evacuations and setting up our welfare centres and
Mm.
going through some quite complex and involved procedural stuff we need to
Yeah.
do with tsunami planning.
Oh, wow.
And that's a difficult conversation for a couple of reasons. Very few people in New Zealand have got lived experience of it.
Yep.
It's also going to happen in the east, like
Yep.
the earthquake
Yep.
again,
Yep.
and the population out there is probably sick of hearing about risks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But
that's
it's
going to be,
growing again out there.
and it's growing again, and
Yeah.
that's another challenge.
Yeah.
And as there's more people go out there, the risk goes up, and then the
Mm.
congestion increases, and then the opportunity to evacuate
Yeah.
decreases. So there's all those factors out there as well.
Mm.
Pile on top of that, climate anxiety with climate change
Yeah.
and the cost of living and all that other stuff
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
happening. It's a tough conversation to have.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's a conversation that needs to be had, right?
Yeah.
So you're working through that, and obviously the stuff you're building here is going to be helping with that. But at the same time, the kit, get ready. Like
It's the same kit.
it's the same kit, right? So having that ready to go. Okay, so put you on the spot because I like putting people on the spot as we end up because 45 minutes we've been going. Crazy. It just goes so fast when we're having conversations. Talk to the business owner. Talk to the business owner and tell them 5 things they need to do to be ready.
So get rid of yourself.
Yep.
Get your husband and your wife and your kids and your mum and dad and the people that you love around you. Get them sorted first, and then you'll have some bandwidth to help out your business.
Yep.
So do that first. It's not very sexy, but have a look at your insurance.
Yep.
Because if you want to rebuild afterwards, you want to make sure there's some money in the tin.
Yeah.
And having the right, not just get insurance.
Yeah.
Get insurance with the right terms and conditions that are going to meet your business needs,
Okay.
including business interruption insurance.
Yep.
And again, not sexy at all, but we saw here in the city there was business owners, and I won't name them, but there was a number of business owners here who had big buildings.
Yeah.
They would have 3 to 5 years of business interruption insurance
Yeah.
for the building.
Yeah.
But the tenants, the business owners, would have 3 to 6 months worth
Months.
of business interruption insurance. So the building owners were in no hurry to get anything done because
True.
they didn't need to be.
Don't need to be.
But the business owners had a much different time frame.
Yeah.
So that business interruption insurance was absolutely
Yeah.
critical.
So think long term.
Yeah, and think about what the worst might be, because when the worst comes along, you're going to need all these backstops.
Yeah.
And having some money.
And that's a
gives
good
you
real life
options.
example, right? Like that's an example that just actually happened here in Christchurch.
Times
Yeah.
many.
Yeah. Yeah. Good advice. Okay. Right insurance.
Yeah, and then the rest of it's about being a good human, like looking after your staff and taking care of them. And if you want your business to survive, and I don't own any big businesses. I've been involved in a number of smaller ones, but I imagine if you're looking after your people, they're going to look after the business.
Totally.
So if you do that part,
Yeah.
you allow them to work from home or
Yeah.
take whatever the flexibility is, or whatever the specific conditions might be. If you can support them in doing that, they'll support you in maintaining the business. So
Yeah.
so that would be my approach.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I think, good people work for good people too, right? So even if you are listening and you're an employer employee, know in times of stress, everyone's trying their best, but maybe even step up and help. I noticed that from when we had, the earthquake, had a business and everyone was stepping up and helping and checking on everyone. And I think that's part of what good humans do, right? I like what you said. Get rid of yourself. I do like the insurance. What you've said there. I actually never thought of that. That was actually something that did play out quite a lot. We weren't allowed in our building. There was nothing wrong with it, but we just weren't allowed in. It was on Riccarton Road, but we were digital, so we could work from home. And then lucky enough that some other people from parts of the country wanted us to go nationwide and do seminars. So we were very, very grateful, still am today about that. But I know a lot of other people, they couldn't get into their building, so they couldn't do what they wanted to do, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it's not even your building and your business that's the problem, right? You might be a 2 or 3 story building here, for example, but the next door neighbour building's 8 or 9 stories. If that's vulnerable, you can't work here.
You can't work here.
Because the building next door
Yeah.
is compromised.
And I reckon that's where the frustration came from too. Like there's lots of frustration. But one thing I will say I learned about the earthquakes is communication is key. And open communication is key. Being as open as you can be with people and letting people know what's going on. Because a lot of the frustration I saw was when people weren't being told maybe the full story. And sometimes you can't tell people the full Right, I get that. But the communication I thought was actually fairly decent from the mayor at the time. He was fronting most days, and he was doing as much as he could to let people know what was going on. So I thought from that perspective, there was good communication.
Yeah, emergency comms is a massive part of what we do, and we often say in our industry that you get judged in the media cycle.
Yeah.
So if the response is going well and the media are looking after you, that works out well. As soon as you let it slip or start leaving gaps, that vacuum gets filled very quickly.
Mm,
So the mayor at the time, yes, did a very good job there, but it was such a complex response that there
yeah.
will be people who didn't get the information they wanted
Yeah.
because it was just so
So
complex and we
complex.
couldn't communicate everything to everyone. It was
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, true, because it was massive. But a good takeaway from for business owners, like communicate. Like I say now to my team, let's just over communicate. Like I look at it as a game of tennis when it comes to communication. The ball always has to be there over the other side of the net. I don't want the client waiting on stuff from us. It's got to be over there. We've got to be waiting from them. We've got to be even following up that. Like, I learned that from the earthquakes. Yeah, people got frustrated when they were having to wait. And hey, look, knowing how much devastation it was, sometimes that wait was justified, right?
Yeah, look, and it is, and no one's trying to hide information.
No,
Far from it.
no.
The other piece, Scotty, probably to touch on is networks.
Yep.
So industry networks, the digital industry network, or the hospitality network or tourism network, and the Chamber of Commerce have all
Mm,
got really big roles to play. And I know the Chamber of Commerce did a great job here during the earthquakes, and should we get an event of similar scale, they'll be back right in the forefront
mm.
again, and they can digest all large amounts of that business information, tailor it for the business community.
Yeah, yeah.
So the civil defence or the emergency management response is talking to everyone about
Yep.
everything.
Yep.
If you want a tailored business response, put that filter on and go through the Chamber of Commerce.
Through the Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, that's another good thing to take away there. Yeah, so if you've got your networks, be involved, learn from them, be part of that, and get involved to level up your knowledge.
Yeah.
Very cool. Hey man, you've provided some really good value here. I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want people to know?
Uh,
Well, firstly, how do they get hold of you? Do you want people to get hold of you or your team?
yeah. In an emergency, don't call.
Yeah, don't call.
Don't call civil defence. Call 111.
Yeah, yeah.
So keep using that channel there. But there are probably a couple of shout outs around just getting prepared at home.
Yep.
And then once you've done that, and many people have, once you're prepared at home, start looking further afield too. So who in your neighbourhood needs a hand? Is it the classic little old lady, or is it
Yeah.
the neighbour who's in a wheelchair, or is it someone
Yeah,
who's
nice.
English isn't their first language, and start taking in a community view.
Yeah.
And if we all do that, the whole city will be better off.
Yeah. Such a cool thing to do. Look after yourself first. Put your own mask on. Do what you got to do, but then start looking after the community. And I know me and my mate, we did that. We were okay. Obviously, we got on our bikes and cleaned up my mum's house over in Avondale Road. We just then got on our bikes and started going to houses randomly and helping them just shovel stuff out. And we met people today that like that we didn't really know that we helped, and like people will see us, oh, g'day, blah blah blah, and that was pretty cool going out and helping other people.
And you get reward from it, and
Yeah.
they get reward from it.
Yeah.
And everyone needs a little bit of few reward
Yeah.
for their time, right?
Totally. And at the same time, like we weren't doing anything. Like, so grab a shovel, get on your bike. You couldn't really you couldn't drive anywhere, so just went and did it. Hey, mate, fascinating story, conversation. Thank you for coming on. One big takeaway for me: do Brenden and his team a favor. Go grab a backpack. Or if you're a backpack designer, maker, person, get in touch. Let's make some backpacks for make your backpack famous, and help these guys be more prepared at home. Help people get more prepared at home. But if you've got a backpack, why not get your kids together, go to one of the websites that we've linked in this conversation, and start being prepared at home. I know I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it this weekend. Get prepared. Get some nice food in there. I know my son will want baked beans. I want spaghetti. So there you go. And get prepared, because hey, at the end of the day, no one ever thought the earthquake was going to happen. I always remember being at school, being taught to do the whole under the desk roll, all that sort of stuff, but never ever thought it would come. And then I remember that first one, like, oh, my wife now, I said to her, man, this is the big one. Get out, get ready, drop. And we did it, like, but it was like, you never think. So be prepared. That's the message, I guess we're saying.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Hey, man, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Right. Until then, hey, by the way, do me a favor. Share this podcast. Someone who needs to listen and hear this message. A business owner needs to hear it, or even your friends need to hear it. So share it out on LinkedIn, share it out on Instagram, share it on Facebook, and make sure this message goes a wee bit wider because this is one for everyone, not just for us business owners and marketers. All right. Thanks for your time. Have fun. And as always, remember, celebrate your victories.